Hey Elena, GM.
GM, how are you?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Excited to chat about what's happening.
I know today's gotten even crazy because of the FTX hacker and a couple of other things, which I can cover in our macro. But I'm going to give people like maybe another minute or two to come through to swing by. So I'm going to put the Legend of Zelda suite back on. That's what the orchestral music was when people joined. If anyone knows The Legend of Zelda, particularly Ocarina of Time, that's what we were listening to. So I'll give people a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, well, maybe that one listener did not like The Legend of Zelda, but that's okay because we'll get started. I'm sure as the space goes on, more people will come through. So, yeah, I'm going to get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Adam, and I'm the head of community here at Rarible. I look after our social and community efforts, including Twitter, Instagram, Discord, and of course, Twitter Spaces. This space is where Elena and I recap the news and we discuss the latest industry developments. The idea is that she and I both pull from our respective newsletters. Rarible's is called Right Click Recap, and Elena's is called NF Times, and we bring you the latest news in the Web3 world. Elena, over to you to introduce yourself.
GM. I'm Elena. I published the NF Times newsletter. I do strategy, biz dev. I take photos, and we do these weekly spaces with Adam and with the lovely Variable every Monday. And we talk about this week's news, what happened, and we take from Variable's newsletter called Right Click Save and my newsletter titled NF Times. And today we're going to talk about FTX, about Twitter, and what's happening with Otherdeed, JP Morgan, Johnnie Walker. So much to talk about. We're very excited.
Absolutely. I see a couple more people have jumped into this space, so we can go ahead and get started. I think the first thing that is on many people's minds, particularly today, is the FTX hacker who has been dumping ETH by the second. Some accounts say that it is 50,000 ETH so far. It could be less or it could be more, but it's definitely having an impact on the price of ETH as we retest the 1100 support level. I'm going to go to Coinbase now just to see where we're at because I know that it is constantly fluctuating. Yeah, we're at 11:05, so we've been hanging out there for a couple hours, but still, it's just wild to know that this hacker dumping this much ETH is having this much an effect on the market. It's kind of wild, but two things that are in support of crypto, though, with this one sort of being at least within the short term sort of negative because too much of the supply is being dumped and the market can't really handle it. So, prices reflecting that. But we know that this is artificial. This is not, really indicative of demand. So this is an artificial short-term thing. Two, however, developments that are really exciting are that JP Morgan officially registered its JP Morgan wallet as a trademark, and it will supposedly support Bitcoin. So not sure the full capabilities yet. I haven't read the trademark application yet, but I'm going to try to do that before next week. But the tweets that I'm seeing at least now, it will reportedly support Bitcoin. So that's pretty exciting. And then another thing that's pretty exciting is a Cardano-based stablecoin is coming to the market in 2023. That is also supposedly regulatory compliant. I'm not entirely sure what that means yet, given I haven't seen any regulations on stablecoins being passed. However, this could mean that it is coming. I'm not entirely sure what to think, but there's a tweet here that I'm going to pin, which will hopefully sort of give people an opportunity to do some of their own research, which, as we know, DYOR is very important in the Web3 space. So I think that takes me through just the first couple things that I wanted to really sort of give people an opportunity to do some of their own. As we know, DYOR is very important in the Web3 space. I think that takes me through just the first couple of things that I wanted to talk about. One is price, but then also two some sort of cetera, which are all very exciting.
Yeah, definitely. JP Morgan is actually working with Wayner as
Oh,
their
no way, I didn't know
consultants.
that. Oh, that's
Yep,
awesome.
yep. One of the newer clients.
That's awesome. I'm not sure if my mic got cut off there. I was just saying, both of these things, the stablecoin regulation news from the Cardano, but then also to the JP Morgan wallet, both of those two things I think are very bullish signals, at least for me long term. And this price impact of ETH and Bitcoin in the short term with this hacker is very short term. It doesn't indicate demand, it doesn't indicate sentiment. It's just one person who was able to hack and is now just dumping a bunch of supply. So I'm still overall bullish, as I think you probably are too, which is why we're here. It's why we like talking about this stuff, and why we like bringing the news to everybody. But yeah, I just wanted to start with that sort of macro sentiment because it's important to know what's going on in the industry and why prices are as they are. And so those are one reason, at least price wise, but two reasons to stay bullish is JP Morgan, one of the largest banks and asset managers in the world, saying, okay, JP Morgan, one of the largest banks and asset managers in the world, saying, okay, we are going to give custody of supposedly Bitcoin through this wallet. Really awesome. And then anytime stablecoins and stablecoin regulation is talked about, it's a positive because that means regulation for other coins, will come. I think stablecoins are first, but then it'll come. So, Elena, I know you wanted to talk about FTX, so I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yeah, the price is 1100 right now, so hopefully, I mean, we might see maybe a bit more depth um, related to this hack. And I actually was listening to some stuff about FTX yesterday, and I'm gonna dive into it. But I also heard like a I guess theory where SBF was actually trying to bring down crypto in general, with like been talking against FTX in DC because he was talking against Binance, if you remember. So I don't know if that's true, but I also heard I guess like a conspiracy theory like that. But let me jump on to FTX. So FTX story was followed live on Twitter while New York Times got under fire for writing a puff story on SBF. And celebrities who appeared in FTX commercials like Tom Brady, Gisele Bündchen, Shaquille O'Neal, and Larry David are also getting sued for quote unquote shilling the company. And FTX collapse continues to affect the entire industry. 134 companies affiliated with FTX filed for bankruptcy. Genesis tried a $1 billion bailout before halting withdrawals. Gemini by Winklevoss twins paused withdrawals as well. News published articles on how if Binance or Tether go under. Tether, as you know, is the issues USDC. Um, it might cause even bigger problems because Tether swapped $1 billion worth of Solana to Ethereum recently. So analysts are sharing fears about the level of exposure Tether had to FTT. Alameda Research was top user of Tether, interestingly, but the company refuted any claims of failure. So, that's a lot of difficult topics, and sometimes gossip is bad enough because Binance selling its FTT sparked the collapse that came after. So withdrawals in large numbers due to fear could break a company that has no skeletons in the closet, anyways. So many people lost their assets to FTX, including some NFT folks. And then anyone who purchased one of the Coachella NFTs won't be able to reach them, including a $1 million, lifetime pass, as they are on FTX. There's a lot of shocking parts to this story, but we should also, remember that there are a lot of real people affected and unable to get their money back from the exchange.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, every day it feels like we're seeing new companies that have been exposed. Maybe they didn't even know they were exposed. and are sort of seeing, the contagion continue to impact the market, and as you said so well, impact real people. I see a lot of impact real people. This is good for the space. It's flushing out bad actors. And I think in the long term, in the very abstract sense, of course, this is good for the space, because it's, I think, going to push regulation forward. It's going to push out bad actors. But there's very many real people here who have lost a lot of money. I think one of the organizations that comes to mind for me is the Ontario Teachers Pension, I think is what it is. That might not be the exact name, but it was a pension who had a lot of money. I'm going to look it up right now just so I'm saying the right one. Teachers Pension Plan. Yeah, it's Ontario Teachers, which is one of Canada's largest pension funds. Had a $95 million investment in FTX, and they had to write it off as $0. They just lost it all. Now, what's good is that 95 million represented less than 1% of the fund's total net assets. So, less than 1%, small change. But then again, $95 million, you just have to write it off. That's really tough to stomach, just like when I see those numbers. So yeah, I definitely don't like that the teachers were impacted. I don't like individuals were impacted. In the long term, as I said, I think it'll be positive for the space, because it flushes out bad actors. It's going to propel legislation to move forward, which is always a good thing, because that will provide the regulatory clarity and transparency that we need. However, it's still just kind of sad. So yeah, every day it looks like we're getting new reports of new entities that have been impacted, and I hate that. But every day we're gonna make it through. We're gonna be stronger and make it through. Been impacted, and I hate that. But every day we're gonna make it through. We're gonna be stronger and make it through.
Yeah, definitely. And there's two things that listeners must know for sure, and one of them is the SBF's DMs with Kelsey Piper, who is a journalist, and I want to read couple from that. The Kelsey says, "You said a lot of stuff about how you wanted to make regulations just good ones. Was that pretty much just PR too?" SPF says, "There's no one really out there making sure good things happen and bad things don't. Usually there's only one toggle: do more or do less. Yeah, just PR. Fuck regulators. They make everything worse. They don't protect customers at all." And then what we're left with today is only the rich can invest, only they can make or lose money. There's some truth to it, but it's also true that I didn't want to do sketchy stuff. There are huge negative effects from it. Oh, no shit. And I didn't mean to. Each individual decision seemed fine, and I didn't realize how big their sum was until the end. And then she says, "You are really good at talking about ethics for someone who kind of saw it all as a game with winners and losers." SPF says, "Yeah, haha, I had to be. It's what reputations are made of to some extent. I feel bad for those who get fucked by it, by this dumb game we woke Westerners play where we say all the right things so everyone likes us." It's crazy.
Yeah, he seems pretty out of touch with his impact. Like, how, I don't know if that's like an interview that I would give after, fully being responsible for all of these millions and billions of dollars that have been lost. It seems like he's pretty cavalier, like he even called it a game at one point, which is not how a person with some sort of like fiduciary responsibility should act. I mean, I know that this was like outside of the US, so it was not subject to the regulation of the US. The Bahamas are not. However, still, if you're going to start this sort of operation, you should at least start with the ethics that you should be a responsible, caretaker of people's assets. Seems like he doesn't have that belief, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, he's in his own sort of world, right? And then the FTX CEO, the current one after SBF, resigned, and the person who's handling this bankruptcy is also the person who handled Enron's bankruptcy, which was one of the worst failures. And he said, never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here. So FTX was, it seems like very aware of all the problems it was doing, and they did not really care much about the customer funds or doing the right thing. So, the takeaway is self custody and don't trust centralized exchanges that much.
Yeah, damn.
That much.
Yeah, damn. I mean, I have been in situations, Elena, I don't know about you, like maybe when you were a kid, it's like you tell sort of like one white lie at the beginning, and then you have to tell another one piece of the original story that didn't work out, and then you have to tell another one because you're sort of juggling all these balls where some things are true, some things are definitely false, and you sort of keep getting deeper and deeper in the proverbial hole with your story. I think that's probably what happened here. Um, One, because there weren't a lot of regulations or transparency involved, so the ability to like move money around with no checks and balances was definitely dangerous. But once Alameda started to fail, using the funds of the customers to patch up those, um, or use those as sort of like band-aids on these wounds of the company, and then SBF's romantic relationship clearly played a factor here. Romantic relationship clearly played a factor here with Caroline, and it just got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until now. I think he's just so disengaged from reality that he's able to give interviews like this where they're just so far out, which is it's tough to hear. So I do feel badly for anyone who has been impacted by this. It's really horrible.
Yeah, unfortunately. And, you know, what is difficult is like there's definitely some sort of get out of jail free card in the sense that SBF has like one company is based in Bahamas. He's in Bahamas. It's a sort of like a haven for this, and he seems to be getting softer hands. You know what you were saying, like um, knowing and not continuing that lie. That's sort of what Elizabeth Holmes did, right? She started saying lies and then had to keep up, and she got 11 years in prison. So we're gonna see if SPF goes in jail or not. I sort of doubt it. But it seems like he definitely should.
Yeah, I saw your tweet about Elizabeth Holmes and sort of the differences here. I mean, obviously, of course, Elizabeth Holmes was in the US and Theranos was sort of like a homegrown company subject to all the different fraud laws that we have here. It's unclear, at least to me, not being a lawyer, like what SBF is responsible for legally. But I do know that the House committee has called on him to testify. I believe it's going to be next month. So I don't know if he will serve jail time because I don't know if he and his organization were subject to any laws of the US. But I know that they are going to ask him to testify, which will be an interesting experience to say the least. Just because, he, in many regards, was sort of Washington's favorite. Um, SBF was always sort of regarded as like this brilliant trader, and FTX was always seen as a trustworthy place, including by Mr. Wonderful, who I know that you have comments about. So, like really wild stuff. I think this hearing will be very different than ones we've seen in the past.
Yes, definitely. And I think the judge who will be, looking after this issue is sort of like a friend, quote unquote friend of SBF, as they met before and had, a lot of conversations before. And there's like a video of that judge like sending like a air kiss to SBF. But anyways, if you have more comments on SBF, if not, we can move on to Twitter if you want, or if you want to talk
Yeah,
about Johnny.
I just wanted to do sort of like a last plug for like self custody. And I recently am taking self custody kind of to do sort of like a last plug for like self custody. And I recently am taking self custody kind of to another level. So I had one ledger. I now have two ledgers, and I'm about to get a third. The reason is because I'm going to put like I'm going to divide up my assets equally, maybe not equally, but divide up my assets between them. So, for example, I'm going to have one doodle on one ledger. I'm going to have my mutant on another ledger, and then I'm going to have like my Bitcoin on another ledger. Not because one isn't sufficient, it absolutely is. But in case your ledger does get compromised, even by an accident, I mean, it's really the technology is purposefully built so as for it not to get hacked. But I mean, if you accidentally connect to a minting site, if you accidentally give permissions, that ledger and everything on it is potentially going to be exposed. So like and this strategy I've seen from from whales in particular. There's like several whales who I've seen even recently. They publish like like pictures, like actual pictures, and it has all of their ledgers, and then they've written in Sharpie or they've attached like a label to what's on each one of them, and it'll say like Bored Apes, and then Bitcoin, and then whatever. You could even separate, your actual coins. You could even your actual coins equally amongst all of them, so that they're not all in one in case that particular ledger does get compromised. But yeah, I just wanted to do another plug for self custody. It's so important to own your keys, to own your coins, and not to have them on centralized exchanges because you see things like FTX happening not regularly, but it can happen. And I personally don't even trust at like Coinbase. It's not, let me take that back. It's not that I don't trust it, but I would rather not risk it. This is people's hard earned money. These are volatile assets. I'd rather not risk it. So, anytime I buy something with Coinbase now, what I personally do is I use the wire transfer feature, which does cost $10, but it allows you to move the crypto that you buy off immediately instead of having it sit there because of like I think it's called ACH, which is like the bank transfer that takes sort of like a couple days to clear. I do the wire transfer, you buy your crypto, and then immediately I take it off and I put it in either one of my hot wallets if I'm going to make a purchase with ETH or into my ledger. So +1 to self custody. If anyone has questions about self custody, our strategies, what hardware to use, please let us know either through tweets or by coming up at the end, because both Elaine and I are very bullish on self custody.
100%.
Yeah, the multiple ledgers thing is as of last week. It's a new strategy, and it's just for fail safe. In the worst case scenario, I'd rather have one of my blue chips get stolen than all of them get stolen.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna put my dude into one. I have one, but I'm yet to put the recent NFT.
Yeah.
But let's move on
Yeah,
to
jump into Twitter. I know you
Twitter.
also have,
Let's do
yeah, jump
Twitter.
into Twitter and Elon. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we didn't cover it last week because I mean we've been covering Elon and Twitter for weeks and weeks now, but it's fun, It's been the top story that it's not just us. Like all the tech podcasts have been talking about it. The New York Times new podcast on tech. It used to be Sway by Kara Swisher. Now it's Casey Newton and someone else's podcast titled and someone else's podcast titled Hard Fork. So they've been talking about this for weeks. So I watched Elon again, and this story has like as many details as a Renaissance painting at this point. And just from Twitter HQ is the chief to it sent an ultimatum email asking the employees to commit to an extremely hardcore Twitter 2.0 or take severance and leave. 3-month severance. And there might be less than 1,000 people working at Twitter right now, as a lot of them took on this offer. And start this month, it was 7,500 people working at Twitter. And previously, as some of he fired the centers, he pursued new subscription products, which he then paused and going to relaunch end of this month, and told company needs to shape up or it might face bankruptcy. And I'm honestly confused by his behavior at this point. I believe he's capable of making Twitter into a much better app, even a super app. And I appreciated most of what he said during Twitter Spaces that was directed at advertisers. He sounded pretty sane. and many look up to his innovative businesses, as he's the richest guy on earth, so he must be doing something right. But I don't think most of the changes he's trying to do are wrong either. But how he's doing it, it makes it very hard to like him or his management style.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, at my time at Twitter, it was always sort of the vibe that Twitter was a very lean organization. And unlike, Meta, which I don't even know how many employees they have. Let me look it up real fast.
They laid off
70,000.
11,000. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
laid off 11,000.
Okay, so it was 72,000 as of last year. So 11,000, let's just say 60,000. I think Twitter had 3,500, maybe like 5,000 with contractors. So, this idea that Twitter was like huge, it was like 35 times smaller than Meta, which obviously like their revenue is also like quite different. But what I think the difference here is Twitter is sort of a complicated code base, and the primary people who are responsible for keeping all of those systems working together, those people are all gone. So I've seen a lot of jokes on the timeline where people are like, oh, yeah, what did all those people do? Those people were focused on marketing. Those people were focused on design. There was a whole like internal design studio within Twitter. There was like a brand team. There were salespeople. There were customer support agents. I mean, really, when you think about it, there's a ton of people, but they were all doing 2 to 3 persons jobs. And I worked at Twitter for almost 4 years, so like I can say that confidently. So I'm actually very curious to see if the fallout will happen on the technology side, or if there even will be a fallout. I mean, there's a lot of engineers who are saying, oh, Twitter's going to break, it won't last the weekend. Well, it lasted the weekend. I think on Friday and Saturday, I saw a lot of tweets saying, this is it, this is our last tweet. And the service appears to have continued. But I'm also seeing tweets, and these are like, I haven't been able to verify them personally, but there was also a tweet that I saw that the two-factor authentication was not working properly. And so like they didn't know how to fix it because the engineers who were responsible. So if you have two-factor authentication and you log out, your 2FA might not work properly to let you back in. So like that's a scenario in which you would need to, it would probably take multiple teams understanding multiple systems in order to get that back up. There was also sort of a couple tweets that I saw on Friday about how people got locked out because of the actual Twitter building in San Francisco, because the person who was responsible for badging and access either quit or was fired. And so I think Elon Musk like personally either texted them or called them and was like, hey, can you come back and let us in? Which is just like, once I hear that, texted them or called them and was like, hey, can you come back and let us in? Which is just like, once I hear that, I'm sure ship is thinking quite where I need them to think at the level,
Yeah, I mean, he is a very particular boss, right? He wants everybody to be in the office. He cares a lot more about coders than he does about media people, etc. And basically has only coders left in the company. A lot of the other departments have disappeared. And some tweets that I saw actually was talking about, he shared a picture and how there were no women in that picture. And probably a lot of the people who stayed, most of them, of course, do like Elon and believe in his vision and and some of them are like visa people like I am, and it would be way more difficult to just make that decision and find a new job, because if you get fired, you have 60 days to find a job again, if you want to keep your visa status. And I also have been thinking about how that email, instead of necessarily increasing the work hours, it was more of a royalty check. He has been trying to figure out what people are thinking about him and fired a couple people who were dissenting on Twitter or in internal Slack messages. So he wanted to only have people who believed in his vision, who believed in him, and sort of a royalty pledge in a sense that I believe in you, I believe in Twitter 2.0, and I'm willing to click on this Google form and say that. Um, so it's interesting.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. I mean, like leadership through fear, which I think is more so the vibe. If you had to ask me like what the vibe is right now, is uh, that is not a leadership style that I personally can get behind as an employee or even as like a leader myself, and the team that I oversee. These tactics would not be something I would ever employ. So, we'll see how long he can keep it going. It's hard to speculate until we actually see. Maybe this will all be for the best, and at that point, maybe it'll be a case study for all of us to revisit what our beliefs are about leadership, about tech, about the way companies should be run. I mean, I'm willing to be open to if the results are good. Sure, maybe we all need a refresher course, but I just as of now, I'm not on board yet.
Yeah, and for people who are not happy with how things are going on Twitter, of course we're going to be on Twitter. We do this on Twitter Spaces, but I also opened Post News, which is a new app that's Twitter-like by the ex-CEO of Waze. New app that's Twitter-like by the ex-CEO of Waze, Nom. So if anybody's interested, I'm also pinning a link to get in on that wait list. So I got into platform. It's pretty nice. I've been testing it out. There are only 3,500 people using it. So it's actually like fun to be in a platform where there's only 3,500 people, which is basically very difficult to get to at this point in the internet where, everybody is everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll just have to wait and see um, to fully know what happens. I mean, I hope Twitter doesn't like go under or like the product doesn't break to the point that none of us can use it. Um, I really hope that, but we will have to see. All right, moving on. Unless was there anything else you wanted to add about Twitter?
Nope. If you want to take us to Otherdeed or Johnnie Walker.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to see, and maybe like we can call people up now, if we want, or if anyone has like a comment here, is that so we're like last week, I think is when I got my mutant, and then I also got an other deed just to, get one just to be like more integrated with the Yuga ecosystem. Sure when the next sort of test of other side was going to be. So I was like, okay, cool. Like I might want to get one of these and just sort of like have it. I paid like 1 ETH for it, so it wasn't like breaking the bank just because the price of ETH right now is like so low. It's still hovering around 1100 since we have been on the space here. Um, but recently there's been sort of a run on them, and they've gone. It's a tight market right now, so like any action I think is good, but it's gone up from like less than an ETH to now almost 1.3. We're just under 1.3. So, definitely an interesting run. I'm not sure if this is being caused by some like unknown knowledge. I don't have the alpha. I wish I did. It's like maybe some unknown knowledge. Maybe it's just people like sort of FOMOing. Maybe it's like the market actually recognizing the true value of these because they did take a pretty big hit when they were no longer considered for the looks rewards. So, yeah, I don't know if anyone has any alpha, like please let us know because I would love to know why they're going up, and maybe I'll sell mine to get a Clonex because Elena, we need a Clonex, don't you think?
Yes, we do. You need a little bit of that Nike plugin.
I know, and Clonexes are also on a run.
Key plugin.
I know, and Clonexes are also on a run right now. They're at almost 9. They had quite an interesting run, and it was because recently, well, the next thing to be delivered, at least from the artifact perspective, is these eggs, which I'm not entirely sure what the eggs are. I don't own a a clone, just so everyone knows, like right now, this is all purely speculation. But like Project Animus is coming out. I think the eggs are going to be related to that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because on Friday, I think it was on Friday, which was, when everyone was saying that, oh, Twitter might not last through the weekend. Twitter's going to shut down because of all the engineers quitting, et cetera, et cetera. Artifact actually published a tweet. And this is where I think this came from, the bull run on clones themselves. Artifact tweeted, GM, maybe our final tweet. And people took that to mean, oh, it's the final tweet before eggs drop. So then there was like this massive scramble to like buy up clones. And so I think they went from like maybe a 7.5 floor, maybe a 7 floor. Now they're almost 9. So that a lot of the supply was actually 7 floor. Now they're almost 9. So that a lot of the supply was actually like gobbled up. And then people realized, oh, they were just like saying that they might not last through the weekend because of the Twitter drama. So the price is like slowly maybe coming back down. But yeah, there's definitely some big projects that are making moves during the bear, particularly around Thanksgiving. Doodles is one of them too, with Doodle Putt, which is going to be very exciting. There was a message from one of the founders, Evan, in the Discord saying that this by far is going to be their biggest activation ever, bigger than NFT NYC, and that they've spent millions of dollars on it. And we're hopefully going to see some Doodles 2 announcements happen during Art Basel. So definitely projects making moves. Like you guys always making moves, of course. Doodles making moves, CloneX making moves. It's like the blue chips who are doing it. So I'm personally very bullish and excited for the next couple of weeks in our ecosystem.
Yeah, I just saw a tweet that said Doodles 2 news on Discord, so I was scrapping through Discord, but I am happy to be a dude. I'm looking forward for Doodles 2 announcements, and I'll be at, Doodle Pod in Miami. And actually, had like 3 of the people from team follow me and stuff, so I feel very at home with Doodles.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think if you go to the Doodler Hall, I don't know if you've like done your collab land yet, but if you go to Doodler Hall, there's like a holographic image with like holographic pants and shirt. And I think this is supposedly some art from Doodles too, which is all supposed to be like customizable. So in a different way than the original Doodles collection, Doodles 2 is the chain for it hasn't been announced yet, which makes me think that maybe they're going to go on something that is a little bit cheaper than ETH, but unconfirmed. No one really knows, and it's going to be fully customizable, so you'll be able to adjust the traits of your doodles to. I don't know how rare certain things are going to be. Maybe all of us will have like the cat doodles or the alien doodles for Doodles too. I don't know, but pretty exciting stuff. I'm jealous I'm not going to be in Miami for Doodle Putt, even though I registered for it. I'm actually going to be in LA. So Elena, I'm going to be where you're supposed to be, and you're going to be where I want to be. So I'm going to be very sad.
It's pretty funny. Actually, I accidentally registered for Saturday, so maybe we'll swap if yours is Friday. Because I was trying to go Friday.
Oh yeah, because
Okay.
you're flying out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Got
We'll
it.
talk
Got
offline
it.
for that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to move on to exhibitions? Only because this I think is pretty important, and we're getting close to time.
Sure, I'll go through some exhibition news, which I wanted to make a little blurb out of because yeah, a couple news around it. And in the meantime, if you have a question or a comment, feel free to request, and we'll go through the exhibition news. I have a question to ask y'all, and then we will invite you up. So, Yuga Labs hatched a plan to donate a CryptoPunk NFT to modern art museums around the world, starting with Punk 305 being donated to Miami's Institute of Contemporary Art. Yuga hatched a plan to donate a CryptoPunk NFT to modern art museums around the world, starting with Punk 305 being donated to Miami's Institute of Contemporary Art. They also announced an initiative to support arts and education in Miami. It's going to be a $1 million program. And also, if you want to see Punk 305, it's going to be exhibited during Art Basel, and you can find out details on my newsletter. We have co-founded by Doodle's chief brand officer and musician Pharrell, Gallery of Digital Arts, which I haven't like looked into this before this week, so it's pretty interesting. It's platform mainly to bring physical paintings into the NFT realm, and they held an auction for an NFT. They turned a painting by Hilma af Klint. There was some discussions. Her family didn't like it, but the foundation did. But regardless, an interesting feat, especially in this bear market. And NFTs also made it to MoMA. One of Refik Anadol also made it to MoMA. One of Refik Anadol, who is an amazing Turkish artist, very well known in the NFT community. So he creates data-driven machine learning algorithms to create abstract dreamlike environments. And one of his works is currently on display at the museum. And he is also creating a special work called Unsupervised that's going to be on display in March in MoMA. So, any thoughts on any of these?
Yeah, that's pretty legit. I mean, I think it just continues to make me more bullish on two fronts. One is just like mainstream culture adoption. Art is often like one of the first places where culture takes a shift. Artists are often at like the forefront of defining what culture is. And so when you get NFTs in museums, when you get artists to come on board, it starts to change mainstream perception. I think that's really important. Also, too, I love that CryptoPunks are sort of going in the direction of being art as opposed to PFPs, particularly in relation to the donation by Yuga Labs to this museum. I think that, that makes it different than, let's say, like Bored Apes or some of the other holdings that Yuga has, which I think many people, got into that, got into project more so for like the got into the project more so for like the cool factor of the PFP, whereas I think people are in the punks for the coolness of the PFP, but also I think there's a growing consensus among punks holders that these are actually art. And so I like that certain collections are taking on this sort of like fine art aesthetic. And I actually have a friend who's looking to sell their ape to get a CryptoPunk. So it's like there's also people who are like jumping ship, even though they're both Yuga Labs assets. One seems to be right now, at least, like a little bit more desirable than the other. And I think the prices are pretty similar right now, at least. If I had 60 or 70 or 80 ETH, I would probably get a CryptoPunk. Unfortunately, I do not. So I'll just have to hang out with my mutant, but, very thankful to have him. But yeah, overall, in terms of like the mainstream adoption art wise, and then also the CryptoPunks being more art focused, it just makes me even more bullish on the space, more bullish on NFTs. And I think like just bullish on blue chips in general. I think there's going to be thousands to even millions of NFT collections. But it's sort of like the blue chips that have made their mark are what's going to be sort of what's recognizable in like 5 years, 10 years. That's just my personal belief. So I'm excited to be a part of some of those collections, and I'm curious to see how it all shakes out. What do you think, Elena?
100%. Yuga is definitely, I think it's kind of great that Yuga owns both Bored Apes and Punks because there's no like competition in between them anymore, but there's like a very clear two distinct approaches that Yuga is taking. Bored Ape, they're trying to make the most important community, right? The biggest, the most famous, leading the way in IP usage, and also of course building way in and also of course building the metaverse that they want to onboard others on, which I believe will be one of the most successful metaverses, by the way, because I think people will go where others are, more so than how good technology is. So since Bored Apes are quote unquote cool kids of NFTs, think they will be able to bring a lot of people to other side. And yep, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I scroll on Twitter whenever we're on these spaces just so I can sort of get the most up to date breaking news. I don't know if this is confirmed yet, but I just pinned a tweet that says US prosecutors secretly investigated FTX months before its collapse. And so, it's hard to say. I guess Bloomberg reported. No, it's hard to say. I guess Bloomberg reported this. So I'm going to go on Bloomberg right now and just see if I can confirm. Um, but like, if that's true, then I feel like the US is like partly responsible for not like stopping this, or at least like announcing this. Again, it's really hard for me as I'm not a lawyer to understand like the regulatory duties that the US had versus FTX had. By law, I think ethically we can all agree that they broke some like ethical agreements that we would all have with like custodial response. That if this is true and prosecutors secretly investigated FTX months before its collapse and found that it was like failing, and then they didn't say anything to anyone, I feel like that's the US government's fault then at that point.
Yeah, I would imagine if they've been, continuing the search, then they wouldn't say anything. But I've also heard, Binance did the withdrawals sort of on purpose because it knew the problems FTX had prior to that. Um, we'll learn all about this when we get the FTX Netflix show,
Oh
which
yeah, I can't wait for that. I mean, the hearing I think is probably going to be the first get a little bit more clearance on, but yeah, Elena, I've also seen those theories that like the Binance liquidation and then also the sort of agreement to have to like bail them out under due diligence, that was never going. So like the liquidation was on purpose because they knew that FTX didn't have balances to actually cover it, and then the due diligence, the offer to bail them out in due diligence, they were never going to acquire them or bail them out. They just wanted to see the balance sheets, and that was really the only way to do it. They knew it was bad, but I don't know if they knew it was that bad. So they got the balance sheets, and then they were like, "Yeah, we're out of here. Like this is so bad." So there are some rumors that this was all on purpose. I don't necessarily love that, but hey, shit happens.
exactly. We shall see. And I got another news. I'm also curating an exhibition in Miami. So if anybody is going to be in Miami, feel free to come over. It's going to be part of an installation called Multi-Layer Faith Room, and the exhibition is going to feature some of my favorite NFT artists: DK Motion, Pop Wonder, Mr. Masang, Amber Victoria, Kat Simmered, and Nest Graphics, whom I actually like love his works. So it's gonna be fun. So it's gonna be fun.
Is Nest Graphics the one? Did you meet him at NFT LA or NFT NYC? One of the ones I think you met, right?
Yeah, I met Pop Wonder,
Oh yeah.
Mumbad, and I met Ember. I haven't met Ness, but we emailed for this, and I'm
Oh
gonna
sweet.
find like a artwork of his and put it up because it's just like so good, and even like the details of his artwork because he like sent it over to me and I like just was zooming in, going crazy. So I'm excited.
Wait, that's so legit. Congrats.
Thank you.
Well, I
So
think that takes us. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say to invite people over if you wanna do that.
Yeah, of course. If anyone has a question, if anyone has something that they want to share, maybe a perspective that we haven't considered, or maybe you have like a rebuttal to some of the things that we've said today, we would love to hear from you. We always invite people up to the stage. As a reminder, it's not a place to shill your NFT or your collection, but it is a place to just share perspective so we all can learn. That's really the point of this space, is to keep up to date and to make the best decisions we can possible about what we do, with our NFTs, with our money, with our ETH, everything. So we do have one person, one rad Latina who we've had before. Welcome.
Yeah, while you bring her up, also I pinned the question of the week, which is if Elizabeth Holmes' this sentence, which was an 11-year sentence, Do you think SPF is going to be higher or lower? You can let us know. You know, write your comments. We want to know what you think. And welcome.
One Red Latina, you are up.
Hi guys, good afternoon. It's good to be, on the stage again. I've been busy and I haven't been able to come into the space. Guys, good afternoon. It's good to be, on the stage again. I've been busy and I haven't been able to come into the space.
Well, thank you for coming back. It's always great to see you.
I just wanted to, so I've been on Twitter for a really long time, since 2009. And I understand that Twitter was like kind of started to help people who were protesting and like having political movements in other places and other countries. And it's really weird to see how it's changed in a way. And I really believe in my heart that he bought the app in order to tank it. I think maybe he bought it in order to tank it, and then at some point he figured it might be a lucrative investment, but then he's just like deciding to let it sink into nothing. That's just what I wanted to say. And also, congratulations, Elena, on your exhibition in Miami. I hope it goes really well. I wish I could see it. And that's it. It's great to listen to a space on Rarible. I haven't, like I said, listened to one in a while. So on Rarible, I haven't, like I said, listened to one in a while. So
Well, thank you for coming. We really appreciate those kind words. Yeah, it's really hard to know anyone's intentions. I think, particularly with Elon Musk, who I don't think is the most forthright person on the planet, not because he's purposefully lying, he could be, but I just think he's like generally vague and may not even have his own idea of what is going on. And for example, like the day after that insulin company was falsely tweeting, like, it was a account and they pretended to be the insulin company, they tanked the shares. I think the next day Elon Musk tweeted something like, oh boy, isn't Twitter exciting, with like very clear reference to what was happening with verification. And so I just think like some of these decisions are not very well thought out. I don't think that they are strategic in a lot of ways. I think he's trying to break things. And he even said, we're going to build fast. We're going to essentially like throw spaghetti. Said, we're going to build fast. We're going to essentially like throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. That certainly is a way to move forward. I don't think personally it's the smartest way to move forward. Particularly with what we saw with verification, is like you would have to be dumb to not anticipate that. So maybe there is some credence here to the fact that it's being done on purpose. There is a theory. I think right now it's a pretty like fringe theory, but there is a theory that like the formal, if you believe in sort of like political parties and Illuminati and all that, that like the left side of like the political spectrum was getting too loud and sort of they were too influential on Twitter. And so, by Musk being able to buy it, letting Donald Trump back on, sort of tanking it, as you were saying, would be a way to sort of like disassemble the left's power, which, a lot of politicians are on Twitter. It doesn't matter where they sort of like rank in terms of the political spectrum. But I have seen that theory before. And when you're talking about the richest man on earth buying companies in order to tank them, I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I don't know, Elena, what do you think?
Yes, I do have thoughts on this. So I think he either there's a theory that says what you're saying, and perhaps he wants to bankrupt the company. There's a theory that says what you're saying, and perhaps he wants to bankrupt the company. He's been trying to do it, and his actions definitely do show that he's trying to do something which can be failing the company. And then I don't remember the full details, but it was about how he can make the company not valuable anymore, basically, and then buy it back from banks and end up owning even more of it. So that's one possible reason that he might be doing that. And then we should also think that he is the richest guy on earth and extremely egoistic and narcissistic, and it's also very potentially possible that he believes he can, fire everybody, start from scratch with people who believe in his mission, vision, and then build his own Twitter as a, as like, there's a great possibility that he believes in this fully. So his actions, it could be due to like both reasons. It's pretty interesting.
What is his vision? That's something I've never understood. What was his vision supposed to be? I'm literally just asking because I keep hearing that, but I have no idea what that means, and there's never been a real explanation, and sometimes it changes. So it's always been confusing. Oh, and before I mute myself again, I just want to say Elizabeth Holmes getting 11 years surprised the crap out of me, because people, when they have a lot of money and so much influence and a very type of privilege, they don't do time, or if they do time, they get a few months. The only other person I've seen with that much money do that much time was Bernie Madoff, and that's because he hit people that were so high up that it would have been impossible for him, I think, to not do real time for what he did. So I just wanted to say that real quick. I'm going to mute myself now.
Yeah, totally agree. I think Elizabeth Holmes, 11 years, I partly think that, she got that one because it was a crime around healthcare. We see a lot of companies, try to do something, fake it till they make it, and then if they fail, they fail, and there's nothing that it's not a crime to fail, right? But I think she chose a wrong